Today, I want to talk to you about the strategies you can use to make content for yourself or your clients so that you can do what you love to do. Whether you're an artist, a writer, or any other type of creative, let's talk about the skills that pay the bills. We have found that when we write ads that drive action, we get paid more. Pretty obvious. Don't just build content, build value. So what delivers value? What gets viewers to actually act? I'm going to give you the process we go through to ensure that we say the right things to get them to pull out their credit cards right there while they're watching a video. But first, I'm going to show you the beginning from the end. This is a video we created using the exact process I'm going to tell you about. You'll see the power of persuasion in action, and then I'll let our content kind of speak for itself. Can we go ahead and play that video?
Do you suffer from a condition known as sloppy sleeves? Do your rolled sleeves fall down because you live on a planet with gravity and children? The problem is many of our shirts are made from slippery fabrics like silk or satin and won't stay rolled. And even when we do get our sleeves to roll, they just look sloppy. That's why you need Cuffed Up. It's a chic, low-profile band that keeps your sleeves rolled up and fashionable all day long. Every Cuffed Up band is designed using an ultra-thin steel core that pops to seamlessly form to your arm or leg. And with the non-slip silicone cover, Cuffed Up is strong enough to hold denim, yet grippy enough for slippery silks. So now you can trust that the style you choose in the morning will last all day. We're so confident that Cuffed Up will give you a long-lasting and stylish look that if you don't completely love it, you can send it back for a full refund. Plus, Cuffed Up comes in a variety of colors, so it can blend with light and dark fabrics, giving you confidence for that presentation at work, going out with friends, or that hot date tonight. So if you want to look good and don't want to spend your day fidgeting, adjusting, and re-rolling, click the link or go to cuffedup.com and order your pair today. Want to wear your favorite shirt in several styles? Get Cuffed Up. Have sleeves or pant legs that are too long and you don't want to pay for tailoring? Get Cuffed Up. Or maybe they're too short and don't quite fit right. Get Cuffed Up. Want your man's forearms to be irresistibly sexy? Get him Cuffed Up. Cuffed Up has been featured in Indie Style and praised by Real Simple magazine as a smart product to make your life easier. Now, I'm not saying that it's a magical band that will transform your life, but yes, it is a magic band that will transform your life. This is what happens when real people try Cuffed Up for the first time.
I think this thing is genius.
It's literally not moving.
This is so cute. This is wonderful.
Look, sleeves can suck, but it's not your fault. Maybe you're too tall, too short, wash dishes, cook food, have kids. Okay, that one is your fault, but I get it. You want to look good, and with Cuffed Up, now you can. So click the link or go to cuffedup.com and transform your style today.
All right, so let's break this down. In our session today, we're going to discuss the legwork that has to be done before you start creating that kind of content. If you don't start here with this initial legwork, you're likely to create for yourself rather than your customer or your viewer. And if you're just creating for yourself, you're doing it wrong. Today, we'll go over the 3 steps that make to making content that pays. These steps are, number 1, get ridiculously clear about who you're selling to. Step 2, get ridiculously clear about what you're selling. And step 3, get ridiculously clear about the competition and decide how to approach it. So in session 2, on the 10th, we're going to get specific about how to take all of this legwork and turn it into actual content using the formula we incorporate into every video we create at Harmon Brothers. So let's get into step 1. First, get ridiculously clear about who you're selling to. Here's the problem. Business owners are too close to their businesses. They know too much. They're too aware of what their product looks like, feels like, what it does, or what it doesn't do. And long ago, they forgot what it was like to actually have the problem that their product solves. They end up using jargon that most people don't understand, which causes viewers to tune out. Or they focus on all the wrong features and benefits, the ones that are new and exciting to them, but don't really necessarily help solve the main pain that their customers are feeling. They have what's called the curse of knowledge. So you need to help them. Or if you're the business owner, you need to help yourself. You need to put yourself in the customer's shoes. you need to become the customer. For the next few minutes, I'm going to show you what we do to overcome that curse of knowledge and focus on what really matters to your customers. Throughout this process, we'll use Cuffed Up, the video we just watched, as an example so you can see how to apply what we're talking about. We're using this video, it's a little bit more straightforward. Doesn't have all the bells and whistles of some of our normal videos, but we think it demonstrates clearly what's going on here. So first, you need to become the customer by using the product yourself. Try to find an aha moment where you understand how this product is the perfect solution to the problem. Don't underestimate the power of actually using the product or service you're marketing. You'll gain insights that you couldn't obtain any other way. And it will also help you to gain a passion for the product or service that will shine through in your work. At Harmon Brothers, we only market products that we've tried ourselves, that we love using, and that we believe in. So once you've actually become the customer, another critical step to putting yourself in the customer's shoes is to read customer reviews. This is a great way to listen to what your customers are actually saying about your product. So at Harmon Brothers, when we say we use reviews, we kind of go to the extreme. We scrape review sites like Trustpilot, Facebook, Google, or the client's website, and even more to get as many reviews as we can. Our minimum is going to be 100 reviews. And as you read the reviews, try to get a real feel for who your target customers are. For our example client, Cuffed Up, we looked at reviews and comments in order to find the most important value propositions and found out most of what people and found out most of what people needed to know, and that they could immediately understand through visuals, which really helped us in our writing process. It really kind of simplified it for us. So we go through a process to break those reviews down into info that we can actually use. I'll explain more about that in a minute. And I can hear you saying on the other side there, Daniel, I don't have 100 reviews, or my client doesn't have 100 reviews yet. I get it. I've been there. We know what that's like. In that case, you need to look at your direct competitors' reviews. Direct competitors are products that solve the same problem in a similar way. So note the differences between your product and make adjustments accordingly. In just a second, I'll give you a number to text, and we'll send you the spreadsheet that we actually use internally at Harmon Brothers to keep track of all these and to categorize them. It really helps make sense of all this info. So now you're saying, what if my competitors don't have 100 reviews? Well, great question. I'm glad you asked. You're going to have to do some work and find other ways that people solve the problem that your product or your service is trying to solve. This is going to take a lot of work on your part because sometimes you're not sure why people are buying the product. You only know that they are. So you'll have to brainstorm all the problems that your product solves and then find other solutions to that problem. And then find reviews for those solutions. Or you need to incentivize your customers to give you reviews with a coupon, a discount, or whatever. I once bought a ping pong table, and they sent a little mailer along with it that if I left a review for the ping pong table on Amazon and gave them the link, then they would send me a box of free ping pong balls. And I went and did that. And they got the review, and I got the free ping pong balls. It was a win-win. Even something like that can be a really great way to go and collect those reviews. So for the sake of time, we'll assume that you now have your 100 reviews. Now you're going to read those reviews and start categorizing them. And don't just read 5-star or 1-star reviews. You're going to read all the different levels, 2, 3, 4. And yes, this may be painful if it's for your own product, and some of these reviews are a little negative, but you need to do this. You need to learn about what your customers are thinking. And list all the top phrases or concepts that you see in the reviews, ones that seem to come up over and over again. You're going to put those into a doc that will help you rank them in importance. And if you'd like to use the template that we use at Harmon Brothers, just text the keyword VidCon to 474747, and we'll send it right to you. And then after a while of going through reviews, you'll start to lose track of those key phrases. You don't want to mix up your strongest value propositions, like in the case of Squatty Potty, it unkinks your colon, with your weakest value prop, like smells like farty perfume, and that's in the case of our client Lumi. They get comments like that. So be sure to text VidCon to 474747 and stay organized. Anyway, this simple document will help you keep everything straight, and we'll use it for ranking all your value propositions and your problems in the next section as well. So each time you see a key phrase or a concept that comes up again and again in the review, and I think we're showing that there in the slide, you're going to update that second column there, so you're keeping track of how often the same ideas are repeated. When that's done, you can sort that column to see which concepts are most important to people who have recently bought your product. It's the stuff that keeps coming up. We've found that one thing that is often repeated is the concept or phrase, "it works." Essentially, that the product actually does do what you say it's doing. And that makes it a little difficult because what does "it works" mean, right? How do you actually use that in your marketing? And if you find yourself in this situation, you want to think about the main problem that your product solves, and why are most people purchasing? So what's your main messaging that's being used right now? Or what messaging leads the majority of your purchases? What's the main messaging in your ad? And then you're going to lean into that more because you're seeing that that's being used the most often, of like, oh, it works just like you said it would. So you'll go back to that main message that's causing that success. Also, okay, so to recap here, you're going to use the product, become a customer, and then you're going to gather the reviews. This will give you the product knowledge you need to skip of knowledge we all run into, and then find the things that matter to the people who are actually going to buy. All right, I'm going to take a quick drink right now, and then we'll go to step 2, getting ridiculously clear about what you're selling. All right, let's get clear about what we're selling. Now you know who is buying your product, having gone through that first exercise. You also need to know how to talk about your product so it's not complicated and confusing. Remember, the confused customer never buys. First, we boil our product down to the simplest message. In Building a Story Brand, the classic book by Donald Miller, it calls this the one-liner. To start, you state the problem. You'll pull this from your most frequently repeated problem that you found in the first step of gathering those reviews. And then you state your solution in a way that it resolves the problem that you just stated. And then finally, you state the unique value proposition and the result they'll get from it. So for Cuffed Up, we stated the problem: sleeves fall down and look sloppy. Then we stated the solution: Cuffed Up keeps sleeves up and neat. Then we talked about the differentiator that gets them a result. Versatile and effective with all fabrics to keep you looking your best. We messaged the language, put it all together, and came up with this more conversational one-liner. Do your sleeves fall down and look sloppy? You need something that keeps your sleeves rolled, looking fashionable and stylish. Cuffed Up, non-slip, form-fitting band that allows you to create the look you want with any fabric or style. Bam, there it is. There's the statement that lets you know exactly what Cuffed Up is, why you need it, and the result you'll get when you use it. Before we move on, I should mention an important point. People don't usually buy because of price, quality, customer service, or shipping times, but they will decide not to because of a deficiency in any of those areas. So having a great product that solves a problem and messaging it correctly is a big part of the equation, but you still have to cover all your bases in those other areas. So hopefully you've got that buttoned up over there. So don't skip on your customer experience. It will lose you sales if you do in the long run, especially. Okay, so why do people buy? People buy a product because it solves a problem for them. Now, if you're unclear about which problem is the most important, we have a way of solving that. You're going to go back to that nifty doc that we sent you in the text, and we're going to start weighting the different value propositions or concepts to figure out what you should be focusing on. We'll use this formula to rank them. Intensity times repeatability Time scale equals importance. And before your brain pops, because mine would, if I saw that, I'm going to break down each one of those so it's really simple. So intensity first. Intensity is how severe the issue is. So how painful is it for the customer? Is it forgettable? Is it as forgettable as like a light sunburn or as major as a broken femur? You're going to give it a number. 1 through 3 is minor or easily forgotten. 4 through 6 is medium or noticeable. And then 7 through 10 is major, or it like kind of takes over their life. It's pretty much all they can think about, right? All right, now, intensity is the first part, multiplied by repeatability. So let's go to that. Is the frequency in which it happens in their life, like this is all about the frequency. So is it infrequent or rare? Then you're going to give it a 1 through 3. Is it frequent, like weekly? You're going to give it a 4 through 6. Is it constant, like daily or hourly? Then you're going to give it somewhere between a 7 and a 10. All right, that's repeatability. Now, scale. Scale is the percentage of your larger audience that is dealing with this problem. If 20% of your audience is dealing with it, give the concept a 2. 2 is for 20%. If 80% are dealing with it, then you're going to give it an 8 for 80%. It's pretty easy math there. So scale of 1 to 10 on 10% to 100%. Then you'll multiply each of those together, your intensity and your repeatability and your scale, and then enter that number. And once you've added all the variables and done the calculations, you'll be able to sort and understand which concept you want to focus on. Using the spreadsheet we provided at the text number will give you a great head start on this and make it a lot easier. Here's what that looks like. There's that intensity, that repeatability, and that scale all multiplied together to create your importance, and then you can quickly rank which one of those things is feeling the most important to your customers. So now that you know the main problem that resonates with your viewer, you're ready to present your solution to that problem and crush your competition. Which brings us to step 3. Get ridiculously clear about the competition and decide how to approach it. So, in the book Blue Ocean Strategy, which I highly recommend, we learn about different levels of competition in markets. When a product has a lot of competition in the market, we call it a red ocean. There are a lot of sharks in the water, a lot of competition, and a lot of feeding on the fish, and consequently, a lot of blood in the water. The sharks are your competition and are devouring anyone looking to buy something in that market. And then on the other hand, when a product has no competition at all, we call it a blue ocean. You're out swimming in the water by yourself, right? Blue oceans are often easier to market within because of the lack of competition. But you don't want to get too comfortable, even if you're having success in a blue ocean. When other people see that success, they'll come jumping into the waters right after you. And unless you continue to innovate in both your product and your marketing, you'll soon find yourself back in a red ocean. So there are a few ways to create a blue ocean for yourself. One way is to create a superior product. How do you do that? You go back to your competitors' reviews. If you're not researching the reviews of your competitors, you are sitting at a banquet table and starving to death. They are the Cliff's Notes of how to improve your product and or message to your audience. List your competitors' pros and cons. What are their strengths and weaknesses? How do those compare with your product? You could create a whole sheet of your own just for your competitors and categorize their stuff and learn a lot about them that way. Just copy and paste that sheet over that you got from the text. But you're going to try to find out where your competitors are advertising, and then you're going to look at the messaging in their ads. Should you address the same problems that they are, or are they missing something that you could maybe capitalize on because of the way your product or service is different? So ask these questions. Who are they targeting? So look at their messaging. Is it catering to a certain demographic? What problems do they emphasize? What is their value proposition? How do they emphasize it? Do they rely on emotional appeals or logical arguments to sell their product? How do they present their company? How do they deal with concerns about their product? What makes their product or marketing better than yours? What can you do better than they can in your messaging? how do people feel about their product or business? So once you've seen what your competitors are doing, you have to differentiate yourself. What makes your product unique and better than your competitors? There are a few ways to show you're different. You can compare your product to an entire general market, like we did with Camp Chef's Woodwind Smoker. So we compared grills versus wood smokers. So traditional grills like charcoal grills, we compared that to wood smokers. And you can compare attributes between products in your category like we did with Purple when we compared soft, medium, and hard mattresses to a Purple. Or if you have the guts to do it, you can compare your product directly with a competitor, but stick to the facts. Don't just say, we're great and they're stupid. It's not going to be the most effective. Say things like, our product is 5 times faster than the other guy. Or our product won easily in a blind taste test. The key is to use demonstrable facts to stay honest and legal. It's stuff that is very quantifiable. It's not an opinion thing. It's just the facts are the facts. So how do you know which comparison you should focus on? If you have a major player in your industry, so a Goliath to your David, if you're the small guy, you're trying to kind of punch up towards the big guy, and your goal is to stand out from this Goliath, then you'll want to do a direct comparison and show how your product is different and better. If you have a product that solves the same problem as another product, but in a different way, you can build up your type of product. For example, if your vacuum cleaner cleans differently than other vacuum cleaners, this is where you highlight your unique mechanism that makes it clean differently than the rest of the competition. So if other brands have clear types of weaknesses that your product doesn't have, you can call out that type of weakness and show how you're different there, where you have that strength. However you choose to approach it, remember, clarity wins every time. If you can be the most clear brand, the one that makes your customer think the least, you're going to win. So today we talked about how you know too much, the curse of knowledge that we all get with getting too close to our product or our service. But you can overcome that curse by doing the work to understand the customer, by literally becoming the customer, using the product or service, experiencing it for yourself, getting that aha moment, and then by digging into reviews. And that's how you listen to what your customers are saying. This helps you identify the main problem you need to address in your ad. If you don't get that problem right, you won't be able to position the solution right. We also talked about knowing your competition and deciding how to position yourself. Next week, we'll talk about how to use this valuable information to write your videos. So if you've watched a Harmon Brothers ad and wondered how we got in your head, you won't want to miss my next session. I'll teach you the exact structure we use and how we apply our research that we talked about today to create ads that resonate and sell on the first touch. So before we wrap up here, we have a few minutes for some questions and hopefully some answers to let me know what's on your mind and how I can help, especially for coming back next time. And while those are coming in, who wants to hear dad jokes? I'm kidding. I'm not going to do those. I'm going to drink water. I don't have any good dad jokes. So I do have some poop jokes from our ads I could recycle, but I'm not going to do that either.
I think we need both poop and dad jokes, Daniel. Come on.
Let's go with, yeah, can we mix the two? Can we do a poop and dad joke? Can we get it all in one? There's got to be a way,
Can we
right?
do a poop and a dad? Let's see if we can think of a poop and a dad joke. I don't know. I probably have one of those around here somewhere. But anyway, it's nice to see you. Thanks for doing this session. I really appreciate it.
Good to see you as well. Thanks for having me on.
Anyway, for those who don't know, I'm Jim Lauterbach. I'm GM of VidCon. And we're going to ask a couple questions here. So let me start off with talking about reviewers. Really interesting that you reach out and see what people are saying about your competitors' products. But as somebody who used to review computer products for a living, do you ever actually reach out to professional reviewers or reach out to some of the reviewers you might read on one of those sources and ask them for more detail about what they think?
Yeah, I think it's more about reaching out to the individual customers. We want to get people that are just experiencing it for real for themselves. Like, it can be very advantageous to get people that have a following to review your product. Obviously, that gets the word of mouth out there a lot. But this is all in the interest of kind of just getting a pulse on who your customer is. What is solving the problem for them, and usually that just boils down to patterns. You're going to find some key phrases in there in some way that repeat in a way that you can start to distill of like, oh, this is kind of the feature that's most important to them, where I was kind of focusing down here on this other one that's not nearly as much of the problem that they're trying to solve. So it's reviews are really nice, and because people will tell you what they actually think, right? Especially when you get into those 2, 3, and 4-star reviews. I think that's where a lot of the real value is had. Because that's when they get into a little bit more nuance about what's working for them and maybe what's not, as opposed to just, I hate it, or I love it, and then it's like, that wasn't super helpful. But anyway, the 2, 3, and 4-star reviews are where you gain some of the most insights, I think.
Yeah, and do you ever go out and actually buy a copy of the product and run it through the paces yourself, or maybe take it out to some potential customers that you might know and do a sort of mini, I don't know, impromptu focus group?
Sometimes we'll buy it. Usually the client will end up sending us like a shipment of the product or something for us to try internally. We have to have a creative director that can get passionate about it. I believe nothing sells better than the truth. And when they're passionate about that, when they believe in it, I think that comes across in their marketing. And in the case of something like, for example, if I'm a creative director on a product, but it's primarily being marketed towards women, then I'm going to go home, and I'm going to give it to my wife and see what her experience is like with that, or I'm going to give it to like my sister, or a neighbor down the street, or we'll find someone here, one of our female creative directors, or female editors, whoever it is. We're just going to make sure that gets into the right hands so they can experience that, because I don't necessarily have to use the product myself as much as believe in what it's doing for somebody else, and get passionate about it that way.
Question came up in my mind as you were talking is, how do you think about an international audience, and thinking about the way that different cultures or different ways that people are around the world, or different languages, can translate into people having different expectations for products? I'm not sure if you took Orabrush, Squatty Potty around the world, but how have you thought about thinking about international markets as compared to, say, the U.S.?
Yeah, so the international thing came into play big time with Orabrush back in the day. I mean, it's been distributed internationally, in Boots and I can't remember all the stores that it's been in over on the other side of the pond. And a lot of it was just solving the same fundamental problem for people, that they were worried about. They were worried about bad breath. They didn't want to have breath. It wasn't so much about getting fresh breath, because the product didn't do that for them. The Orabrush was a tongue cleaner to help cure bad breath, and it cleans all the gunk off your tongue that makes your breath stink. And so it was the message was the same. It was just more of translating that language of something like helps cure bad breath over to something like Spanish, or over to something I can't remember what all the languages they went into. I think they went into Portuguese, and gosh, they went into a whole number of them. But I think a lot of the problems that we help solve for are kind of universally applicable. In the case of something, I'd say the majority of our clients have been primarily U.S. based. Others have been more international. If we think of something like Purple or Lumi, that's primarily U.S. and Canada, and those are universal problems of like whether how well someone sleeps. People want to sleep well. They want to have good health that way. The same thing for something like deodorant. And so I think most of the things that we've attacked haven't been as culturally specific. The Squatty Potty would be one example where I would think of it, because a lot of international stuff, the Squatty Potty is based on actually internationally in a lot of countries in Asia, they actually squat to eliminate, right? They squat to poop. And so that's kind of where the original concept came from the founders, is that they had gone on a trip to Asia and had seen how when they were over there pooping, they felt so much better than when they were back here sitting on a toilet. And so marketing over there doesn't even make a lot of sense because a lot of their toilets are set up that way anyway. But yeah, so in that case, that one was much more of a Western problem than anything. Oh, sorry, I can't hear you, Jim. Did I lose him?
Sorry, I hit the button wrong. The dogs are barking in the
there we go.
background.
I got you back. I got you back.
My dogs. How do you?
It's a new age. It's a new age of VidCon.
Yeah, exactly. Another question came up. How do you toe the line between connecting with your audience versus being too familiar? I mean, you want to connect, but you don't want to make sure that they're like your best friends, because then that can sort of change the way you probably interpret the results.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's primarily in the testing of the content. Meaning you want to identify in the ways that I talked about earlier, what is the primary problem, what's the biggest pain they're trying to solve with your product or service. And then you want to speak very directly to that. But then in the testing of your content, then you start to get a little bit more knowledge in the way that actually plays out. So let me use Lumi for one example. Lumi is a deodorant that works on your pits and your private parts. It's the first deodorant that really works on your private parts, that's safe to use basically all over your body. And they've made a bunch of different pieces of content where they mention first and foremost the fact that it's aluminum free, right? And they're speaking to a specific audience that's a little more naturally minded that way. And they had a tremendous amount of success with that, with our first few videos that we put out. And then they we made together a piece of content for feet, and found out that was much of a lesser pain point that people were trying to solve. A lot of it being because there's a lot of companies out there that are already trying to solve for foot odor specifically, although it's very effective for feet. But then we also made another ad that's focused entirely on deodorant for your private parts. And that is such a blue ocean, like I talked about earlier, that's so different than anything else that's out there. It's just killing it for them. And granted, they're still having success within those other customer demographics. They're trying for underarm, for just normal stinky armpits, and people are solving for their feet or other parts of their body. But then that ad speaks very specifically to that problem is just doing super well. And so I think so much of that comes out in not getting too close to things. I think you're speaking to your customer just right, is in the testing of different messages, that even as you go through this process, it gives you a really great foothold to start from in putting these things into a spreadsheet and giving them a rank. And it gives you, it makes you know that you're at least not starting off just shoot clear out of nowhere, right? You're at least hitting on something that's working to begin with. But then in the actual testing of your content, you'll know more and more how to speak to the customer better and better.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We had another question from one of our viewers, Socratica Kim. What if you're convinced your product solves a problem for a niche audience, but they haven't found you yet? How do you speed that process of connecting up between you, your product, and the right customer base?
So I think that really boils down to getting your message right, to speaking to it very directly. That, again, when customers or viewers have to burn a lot of calories to think about what they're being told, they're going to check out pretty quick. So if you can make that clarity there about that message, that you're going for that little niche, that's really good as a starting point. And then I think it really kind of all boils down to targeting. And I don't know who she's targeting specifically or with what product, but generally speaking, it's finding your demographic and where do they spend their time, right? Do they spend their time on Facebook? Do they spend it more on YouTube? Are they on Pinterest? Is it LinkedIn? Where is that niche that you're serving? And then you go to them there and make sure you're targeting them specifically and testing directly towards that audience as specifically as you can. And obviously, there's very robust targeting tools on Facebook, on YouTube. Almost all these platforms have some pretty specific targeting tools. Facebook has some of the most specific, but depending on if it's a B2B play, if it's for business to business stuff, could end up being that LinkedIn is your best bet. If it's a much younger audience, then you are going to want to play to them more on things like TikTok and Snapchat and that type of thing. So it just all depends on where your audience lives.
What are the platforms that you've had the best success on? I mean, if you were to rank them, which one is like, if I've got something new and I don't know where I want to put it, where would you recommend someone start?
If you got something new and you don't know where to put it, that's such a wide open question. I would say where we have the most success are the big ones. It's on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and then there's some Pinterest and LinkedIn. That's primarily where we go to. But that's a lot of what our client base knows us for. They're coming to us because they're trying to market to a specific demographic of moms or of dads or those types of things, and that's where those audiences are living. And like I said, if you're going, to teens or something along those lines, then you're going to stay the heck off of Facebook. You're going to get as far away from that as possible because that's not where they're spending their time. You're going to go after things like TikTok and Snapchat. So it just all depends on who you're going after. I guess the default would be just because of the targeting ability, unless you're going after teens. If you're just going after a wider swath of audience, I'd say it's usually best to start on Facebook and YouTube.
Very interesting. Real quickly, how are you feeling about Pinterest these days? I was just talking to a friend of mine who's actually going to do an AMA on our audience development side on our Discord server later this month, and he was telling me about what a great Pinfluencer he is and the number of views and followers he has. Is Pinterest an up-and-coming area, something you should really take a look at, or what do you think about Pinterest?
I think it's still very relevant, still very strong. Obviously, it's not the biggest player or anything like that, but again, it's all about following your audience's eyes, right? Where do they spend their time? And if you can get to the bottom of that information, Pinterest can be a really good place to play, and you can have some really effective stuff there. We've had some really great success, for example, with Lumi on Pinterest. That's worked really well. And I think we've had what was the other brand that's not coming to my mind right now? Anyway, but there's another client that's had really good success on Pinterest as well. And yeah, it really we're in a day and age where if you're not at least somewhat platform agnostic, then you can get too hung up in a certain area, or you can become too dependent on one platform, and then an algorithm changes and it messes up everything, and it can really kind of throw you off. So you want to focus in first and foremost on your message and your content and serving your customer and where do they spend their time, and not so much around just like Facebook is the end all be all, or Pinterest is, or YouTube. I think that doesn't set you up for long-term success. I think you need to be more diversified, and you need to be thinking more of your customer first.
All right, I have one last thing before we let you go, and we'll get prepped for next week. Great cuffed up video. You're wearing short sleeves, Daniel.
Oh,
what's the deal? You're not using your product.
Right? I should have gotten a long sleeve and just rolled it up. Hey, we're actually having a good day out there. It's like 73 degrees, so I was don't get the long sleeve.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. That was super insightful. I grabbed a copy of the spreadsheet. Really interesting as to how you think about reviews, going after your customer, your competitors, and start to build that out. Can't wait for part 2. Part 2 is next week. Same bat time, same bat place. Daniel, thanks so much.
Thanks, Jim.
So next week, in addition to Daniel coming on to do part 2 of this great workshop, we've also got a bunch of other stuff coming up. AMAs next week with Wally Wildbacker, I think, coming back up for an AMA on Thursday at 3 o'clock Pacific, which will be good, doing audience development questions, answering anything you might want to know. A lot of great stuff happening next week. We've got Brent Rivera also doing another one. So please do come to as many VidCon Now sessions as you can. We do it all for you. I'm Jim Lauterbach, and that's it for this session. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.